Hello, musicians. We are looking at Essential Elements, page 5, and we're going to look at the theory parts of this page. That's the things that tell us how music works and what we're seeing on the page. So the way this is going to work today is I have everybody, there we go, now all the right colors. I have all of the instruments up on the page because I thought it would be interesting for you to see how they're different. Most of it's the same, just one part's different. So in the upper left-hand corner, up here, I know it's hard to see the cursor, it gets funny when I go over a thing. That's the violins, where it says treble clef up here in the top left corner. Right below that, it says alto clef. That's the violas. And over to the right, that would be for either cellos or basses. So let's look first at that thing at the top where I said one of them says treble clef, one says alto clef, and one says bass clef. So this is the thing that tells us what notes we have. And it's different for all of the three groups of instruments. So first, let's look up at the treble clef up at the very top for the violin. The treble clef is that swirly thing. That's the treble clef. And that tells us that if we're looking at string music, that tells us we're talking about a violin. Now look at what that means to us. What that means is that if I look at the lines, the notes on the lines are E, G, B, D, F. So if I see a note on that bottom line, it's always going to be an E. On the spaces, it's D, F, A, C, E, G going up. So if I see that note hanging off the bottom there, that's my open D string, and it'll always be my open D string. So it's not like they change ever. It's always the same note in the same place. Violas, let's go down below to you where it says alto clef. For you, the alto clef is that thing, I think it looks a little bit like a B, but a really fancy one. This thing, the two loops. The alto clef is the sign that says viola. There are not other instruments, any other stringed instruments that play using the viola clef. So if you see music with an alto clef at the beginning, you know it's viola music. Take a look at for you though, your lines are F, A, C, E, G. Very different than the violin was. And the spaces are E, G, B, D, F, A. Also very different than the violins were. Just as a note for violas, that very top A on the spaces, that's your open A. And it's always going to be an open A. Going over to the right for the bass clef. The bass clef is that thing that looks, well, it goes this way, right? Sort of a half of a circle. And for cellos and basses, they use the same clef and the notes are in the same places. They sound different, but they look the same. For cellos and basses, our lines are G, B, D, F, A. Notice cellos, that top note is your open A. And the bottom, the spaces are F, A, C, E, G, B. Very different than either of the other two, right? So everybody's got different notes in different places. We all have the same notes eventually, but they're all in different places. So now let's look at the next thing right below that, the time signature. Same for everybody. It's two numbers, one over the other. Looks like a fraction, but there's no line in the middle like fractions have, just one number sitting on top of the other. The one on the top tells us how many beats per measure. If you remember in one of the previous lessons, we talked about the bar lines, dividing the music up, and the thing in the middle being the measure. That's how many beats we're going to have in a measure. The number on the bottom, it tells us what kind of note gets one beat. Well, for us, it's going to be just quarter notes for a long time. They can do other crazy things, but for now, that quarter note that we've just learned about, which it shows right there after the 4, either the filled in circled with line or the little squirrely rest thing, either of those are one beat. And that's the kind of thing that's going to be a beat. The thing on the bottom, the last one down here, is the double bar. Double bar, we've talked about bar lines going between the measures. At the end, they need some way to say to us, we're really to the end. You didn't just lose part of the music somewhere. And so they use this double bar, which is they put that bar line and then they put a thick bar after it. Double bars are always the end of the music. Okay, let's go down. Let's scroll down just a minute here. There's one more thing we need to talk about real quick down here. And that's the repeat sign. Oh, whoops, I should go up a little bit further so we can actually see a repeat. Okay, there we go. This repeat sign is that it might be a double bar if it's at the end. Either way, there's going to be 2 little dots. Those 2 little dots are the things that say, go back and do this again. So for us right here, if you take a look at your number 8, look at the very end of the line. You see your double bar that says it's the end of the line, but then there's the 2 dots? That tells us to go back and repeat it again. So I'd play number 8 all the way through, then I'd go back and play it another time, a second time. That, I think, is everything that we need to talk about on this right now. There will be other things for us to talk about, but this will be good for today. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.